Welcome back to another episode of History Investigation, where we take evidence from ancient civilization and investigate different aspects of it. So let's begin with picking our civilization that we will be doing today. Please bring the history box. But first, let me introduce you to special historian guest, Dr. Andrea Wong.
Good morning, everyone. So let's begin with picking our civilization.
Ancient China. Fantastic. It seems like this would be a long episode, judging by how long the history of China is. So let's get right to it. But first, we need to get some background information.
Background information. Ancient China was one of the oldest and longest civilizations in the history of the world, and it can be tracked down to as long as 4,000 years ago. China is located in the eastern part of Asia, and it is the largest country in the world. Ancient China was ruled by powerful families all through history and would call it dynasty. It started with Shang Dynasty and ended with Qing Dynasty. Ancient China also had an emperor system where there would be one emperor that ruled all over the whole country. It started with the Qing Dynasty when Emperor Qing united all of China. After that, emperors ruled China for another 2,000 years. Early times, the government would be run by landlords and they had farmers and peasants to work for them. Later years, it was run by government officials that would be elected by passing exams and sometimes the emperor. Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism was one of the three main religions in ancient China, just as painting, poetry, and calligraphy was the three main arts that are focused on. Mongols were a threat of the Chinese. The Great Wall was built to defend themselves from the Mongols. They were like the barbarians of Eastern Asia. Fun fact, did you know the Chinese had used chopsticks to eat for more than 4,000 years?
Oh wow, that is so cool. Using these chopsticks is much harder than I thought. It took me 3 years to master the skill. Okay, let's get started from the earliest civilization found in China. Many had said that it began with Yellow River Valley in 5000 BCE. Do you agree with that?
I don't actually. There was evidence of people living in China since 1.4 million years ago, and they have actually been making sophisticated stone tools and using fire.
It is different as it was a world not yet civilized. There were only minimal technology that was made.
Yes, but you see, stone tools are the very beginning of a civilized village or place. Without it, a lot of materials would not have been created, and so I held strong belief that it may have even begun before the Yellow River Valley.
Andrea, there is evidence found in civilization even before Yellow River Valley, and that's 1500 years before, where we found evidence of a rice cultivation and had began in the Yangtze River Valley in China.
Yes, I agree with you. But even though I don't believe Yellow River Valley was being the cradle of civilization, I do believe it has a strong turning point for it. The Yellow River Valley in Henan Province was the site of many early villages and farming communities. Archaeologists have found altars, pottery, stone tools, and even jade tools. These were only the few of many things that have been found.
That is true, because from that and many other villages and farming communities, it eventually grew into a centralized government, and the first one that was prehistorically documented was Side Dynasty.
Xia, founded in 2070 BCE, was a very significant moment in the history of China, as it was the first dynasty in ancient China. It had a government system and policy. Xia dynasty, to many scholars, would be considered as a myth, but there are actually indeed evidence to prove that it is an existing dynasty of China.
And do you believe that Side Dynasty exists, or do you believe that it is a myth?
I do believe of its existence.
Why?
Well, according to historian Sima Qian, before Xia was found, there was a man named Huang Di, and he was known to be called the Yellow Emperor. He was the one that came through the tribal system and went established a form of government. He also invented many musical instruments and developed the silk production. He wrote laws and customs and developed many medicine and agriculture. He became a huge influence to ancient China and helped develop it to a more civilized place.
As you have said, it is before Sai. There is still no evidence that Sai existed, as he seemed to tie no connection with it.
Well, you see, Huangdi was the grandfather of Zhuangzhu, one of the 5 famous emperors who founded Xia. Even though he did not become the final emperor, he adapted many of his grandfather's way and developed great places and turned small villages into urban centers.
So would you say Dynasty Sai was a breakthrough for China?
Aspects, yes, like technologically. For example, because of flooding problems occurring as they settled near the river, dikes and canals were built to help relieve the water. And it was also a breakthrough for government policy. Xia established a stable central government and organized the country to 9 provinces and make governing such a large area more manageable. As you can also see, there was also a hierarchy system, much like ancient Greek or Rome. The ruling class and the elite will live in more luxurious areas while the peasants remained in rural areas.
Like Greek and Rome, you said.
Yes, let's take Greek as an example. The Athens are the upper class and lived in a luxurious and extravagant lifestyle. Then there are the Metics. They're the middle class, and following are the freedmen, the lower class. Last but not least, the slaves. Like every ancient civilization, there would be a social hierarchy, no matter where it is.
I see. Now following this side would be the Shang dynasty. That was founded in 1600 BCE. It was the second dynasty of China, and it was led by leader Tang.
Yes, many who doesn't believe Xia existed would say that this was the real first dynasty in China.
I wouldn't blame them. I mean, Shang dynasty was also a huge leap to civilization in China. Numerous cultures advanced like bronze casting, the calendar, religious rituals, and writing were developed. The king created a stabilized government system that had caused the dynasty to stand for around 600 years. I would say it's very impressive.
Yes, Tang, the ruler of Shang, abolished a lot of previous policies coming from Jie, the last king of Xia. Tang made up a new government that worked for people instead of the other way around. He was also a very kind king, and he lowered the number of conscripts and the amount of time a man needed to serve, while at the same time keeping a strong troop that was ready to fight at any time. He also began government-funded social programs for the poor, for example, giving them money so they could survive famine.
You mentioned the famine. Was the economical system bad during that time?
It wasn't bad, but like every country, there was a significant difference between the poor and the rich, but Tang tried to make the gap closer. Shang rulers also felt the agriculture was very important, and so fishing began to grow as an industry. And yes, while people suffered from famine, the beginning of Shang dynasty was also still considered to be a prosperous period of time.
You know what they say during the hardest times? It was God that helped them get through it. Did they have a religion then?
Indeed they did. The Shang dynasty developed ancestor worship, and also the link between the people to the king and the kings to the god. It was kind of like the kings were closer to the gods than the others, and that led to a harmonious period of time. Taoism was developed during this time, and it gave people the belief that there is an afterlife.
The belief that gods were closer to kings? That is kind of ancient Mesopotamia. How would the people believe that kings were closer to gods and kings were a messenger from the gods, right?
That is correct. In the earliest religion aspects, it was kind of similar to ancient Mesopotamia. That is correct. That is correct. In the earliest religion aspects, it was kind of similar to ancient Mesopotamia, except for the fact that ancient China did not have priests.
You also mentioned how the calendar was made.
Yes, based on the moon, the farmers made a calendar so they would know when to harvest their crops. Wan Yan, a man in Shang dynasty, measured time over a one-year period by marking the shadows throughout a day using a sundial and a water clock. Before this creation, people thought there were actually 355 days in a year, and after, it was proven that there were 365. Writing was also developed in China through the use of oracle bones, which were the shells of turtles or bones of animals. The first Chinese script was found in the form of an oracle bone. It also helped the development of science and mathematics, as there have been found messages of the solar eclipse and mathematical problems.
Wow, that's amazing. That's one step further into civilization.
Alright, what's next?
You're asking me? I thought you were supposed to be the historian here.
You're right. After the Shang dynasty comes the Zhou dynasty.
The Zhou dynasty, founded in the year 1046 by King Wu. Zhou dynasty, like any dynasty in China, was no question a huge stepping stone towards civilization.
Indeed, writing was codified during this period, and iron and metal work became very useful and was developed. Chinese philosopher Confucius, who later developed a new religion, Confucianism, was born during this period of time.
The Art of War, which is a very popular work that is still read by thousands, was created during this period, right?
Yes, Sun Tzu, who is known as a Chinese military strategist, wrote this based on military strategy. He was a man known for his great military mind, and many great warriors after had studied this to learn more about different strategies and techniques to win war.
Speaking of war, Tao Dynasty was a very messy period of time. It was filled with war and desperation.
That is correct. Near the end of Zhou Dynasty, it wasn't even a dynasty anymore, and that period was called Spring and Autumn and the Warring State, as there were 7 states in China, all fighting for control. Lastly, It was just between the state of Qing and Zhao, and Qing defeated Zhao at the Battle of Chongping.
Qin, isn't that the period that the Great Wall was built?
Yes, you see, ancient China was ruled by all monarchs. Kings rule, but as a kingdom get bigger and bigger, the kings have less and less power. Power were passed on to regional lords. After that, more power states conquered the weaker ones until the last one was left, which was Qing state.
So what happened?
Well, Qin Shi Huang was the first emperor. He was a ruthless king and he had many accomplishments like the Great Wall and the terracotta warriors and horses. He was a profound influence on Chinese history and culture.
He was indeed a ruthless emperor. I mean, he would kill anyone that opposed him, and if not kill, he would put him or her to be forced labor, and even included his son.
Well, yes, even though he was ruthless, he was one of the most influential people in the history of China. He, for one, was the first emperor that changed the whole system in China. He abolished the hereditary vassal enfranchisement.
Wait, what exactly is enfranchisement?
Well, it's the act of which a person could be given land in exchange for a pledge of service. Emperor Qin also established prefectures and counties that were directly ruled by a government. He created a tax system and standardized coinage and metrology. He also unified Chinese characters and writing.
But don't forget, he also killed many scholars that did not approve of his way of writing and burned all literature that he did not like.
Yes, well, while he had many great achievements, he also killed a great amount of people. And the most people killed were during the construction of Great Wall and the terracotta warriors and horses. It was said that because he wanted to be built faster, he used a lot more men, which caused a lot of manpower to be wasted.
The Great Wall was built to defend the country from the nomads, right?
Yes, maybe that could justify it a bit more. He also built many roads and canals for transporting goods and troops.
Well, then Qin period ended pretty quickly. Does that mean that they had a bad military?
Not necessarily. He had made many great advancements in his military campaigns, and it was his strict laws that was made by people that did not like him. He ordered that every man had to serve at least 1 year in the military, and he also took away any weapons that were found in a man's home. Not only did he standardize the law, but he also wanted to standardize people's thoughts.
What do you think of Emperor Qin? Go online right now to give us your opinion, and we'll get right back to it after the break. Alright, welcome back. Where did we leave off?
We left off asking what the crowd thought of Emperor Qin, and the answers are quite interesting.
Let's read.
At Chelsea Hamilton says, he's a narcissist and he's obsessed with himself. He even went as far as going to Taoist masters to get medicine from him so he wouldn't die. When that didn't work, he made thousands of men in the city to help him build the terracotta warriors so they could serve him in his afterlife. Well, yes, Emperor Qin was a Taoist believer, and it had been said that after a person dies, they believe that there's something called the afterlife, and whatever you bring along with you will also come with you to the life after death. In Emperor Qin's grave, there are numerous slaves and luxuries buried along with him. However, his grave is also sealed with acid, and that is why no one from this day had ever attempted to go in.
Well, isn't that extreme?
Well, not really, if you considered all the things he has done throughout the years.
That is very true. Going on to the next dynasty, the Han Dynasty.
That has to be one of my favorite dynasties. It started when Liu Bang defeated the Qing dynasty, and it was one of the longest dynasties in China and lasted for as long as 4 centuries. It was considered as a golden age for China, and it exceeded in arts, politics, and technology.
And don't forget medicine.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. The earliest written record of medicine was codified during this period of time, especially since paper was also discovered, and therefore causing writing to become more sophisticated.
Liu Bang changed a lot of things, all for the better though.
Yeah. Another thing he changed was the religion. He adopted Confucianism instead of Taoism and made it the exclusive philosophy of the government. But even though he preferred Confucianism, he still had tolerance for all other religion and literature, unlike Emperor Qin.
Yes, and that is why the education system and the literature from this period is still kept alive until now.
Yes, as Confucianism was incorporated as the official doctrine of the government, Liu Bang started schools throughout the whole empire to teach literacy and Confucianism idealisms. Even after his death, the dynasty still stayed as Liu Bang's son followed his father's footsteps and remained to the Golden Ages. He ordered his emissary, Zhang Qian, to open up the Silk Road, which developed trade routes to many different places in the world, including ancient Mediterranean, India, and many more.
Opening up the Silk Road really helped the economy, huh?
For sure, as it broadened their trading areas. Because of that, pulleys and wheelbarrows were also invented to move goods.
Was it only used to move goods?
Well, not at all. It was also used to bring troops around different areas for war purposes. It was also used to store war goods like swords and shields during war times.
Not only did he open up the Silk Road, he also reformed transportation, roads, and Not only did he open the Silk Road, he also reformed transportation, roads, trade, and many other public projects, using tons of workers and not to mention tons of money.
Exactly, and that is why it led to its downfall.
How is that so? Didn't you say the economy was good?
The economy for the rich was good. However, it wasn't the case for the peasants. Life became very difficult for them as they worked nonstop for all these new projects. Wang Mang took control of the government and put an end to one of the best dynasties of Chinese history.
And he proceeded to starting a new dynasty, Qin, which only lasted for 16 years.
Correct. Even though he was very well liked by the peasants, as he put a stop to their workload, his poor judgment ruined that, causing the peasants to lose their jobs and money. They were angry. It wasn't long till the people got angry and decided to kill him.
But there were also some good that came along, right?
Well, yes, and we have to thank silk for that.
Oh yes, I have read somewhere that silk was considered very precious in the ancient world.
It was. The Romans considered Chinese silk more precious than gold, and even were willing to pay any price to buy it.
Wow, that's crazy. What else?
Well, that's pretty much it for Qing Dynasty.
After that came Sui Dynasty, right?
Yep, even though it only lasted for around 20 years, it was pretty impressive by the things they have done.
Aha, the Grand Canal was constructed during that time, and the emperor, his son, increased the size of the Great Wall to further protect their city.
Yes, they were all about defending their own land as they increased the size of their army. It was actually the largest recorded in the world during the period of time.
Impressive! Wasn't that the time when Mulan was born? That didn't go to go father's part in that honey?
Yes. Unfortunately, unlike the Disney movies, the emperor had been bankrupt and had no money to support the troops, leading to many casualties and losing the war. And that led to the start of another dynasty, Tang.
Even though Tang Dynasty didn't last long, it was considered the golden age for Chinese civilization. People in China nowadays would even refer themselves the people of Tang.
People would consider Tang Dynasty to be the best dynasty in ancient China, as it had brought the economy, politics, culture, and military strength to a whole new level that has never been reached before.
It was the most glorious when it... Oh, crap. That doesn't make any sense.
It was the
most glorious when it had begun, right?
Yes. When it was just set up, Emperor Taizong was a very wise emperor, making good decisions that caused the city to rise from a weak state to a city of prosperity. The economy and commerce flourished, and the social order was stabilized. Corruption in the government didn't even exist, and national boundaries were open to foreigners.
Wow, that seems like it was not only rich, but also really safe.
Yes, Taizong brought up a new religion which was called Buddhism. He had Buddhism temples built all around the battle areas and memorial of the dead. He also built a lot of places of worship and around the city, as he wanted to cleanse himself.
So how was the economy of Tang Dynasty?
Well, you could see in different aspects, especially in agriculture and handicraft. For example, water conservancy and farming techniques were developed, and people had a happy life. In handicraft, silk and ceramic got popular with business, attracting businessmen and diplomats from foreign countries. Trade flourished as they used silk roads for trade, making connections with people all around the world.
Yeah.
Shortly after he passed away, the throne was passed over to his son's wife, and I'm sure you've heard of her. Her name was Wu Zetian.
She was the first ever emperor that was a woman, right?
Yes. During her rule, she changed the dynasty to Zhou for 15 years, and during that time, the military power was exquisite. Wu Zetian's military dominated in northern areas. She was very good at using strategies and was strong enough to launch expedition against other ethnic groups. Overall, their military was strong and even helped mobilize and unify all nations.
Alright, that's today's episode. Alright, today's episode is coming to an end, so now we're going to answer some questions from the audience. At Annalise Co asks, what would you say is the key point of development in Chinese history?
I would say Ming Dynasty, even though we haven't talked about it yet. Ming was one of the greatest areas of political and social stability. China built a huge logo force with an army over 1 million troops. This gave China a huge security at the moment. It also expanded its trading areas and it started trading with countries like Portugal, Spain, and Netherlands. The economy was so good that enabled them to make huge construction projects, continue building the Great Canal, and the Great Wall.
Thanks everyone for joining us on this episode. A special thanks to historian Andrea, and we'll see you next time. Bye!